Okay, number 31, what did you do? For 31, what was your strategy? The y equals button. So you go to your first answer choice and you put it in your y equals button. Now, I mean, just to give you all just a little, like, to try to help you not have to do all of them, this is called a quadratic equation. If it has that extra number, it's the y-intercept. So like B, it would have a y-intercept of negative 256. But do you see how A and C don't have that extra number? That means it's going to pass through what? 0. So I knew right away it wasn't B and D. I'm just trying to save myself time in my calculator, like not having to do so much. So I do A, I go to y equals. I clear that out and I type in negative 16x squared minus 64x. Now hitting graph is not going to help me. Y'all hear that? Oh. What is going to help me? A table. So I want to see, did this one pass through 0, 0? Because that's where it passed right here. Yes. So now I'm going to check 1, because where should 1 be at? 48. So I go to 1, and it was not at 48, so it cannot be A. So it has to be C, but I'm going to go show y'all. So I go to C, negative 16x squared plus 64x. I go to the table. Did it pass through 0, 0? Yes. Yeah, I knew it. There we go. I was like, that one should be right. Okay, and then 1 passes through 48, and so that was the answer. So remember, when you're using your y equals button, the graph button is not going to help you. What's going to help you is the table and then matching the coordinates. Same thing on the next one. Now, did this one pass through 0? But what did it pass through as its y-intercept? Positive 4 or negative 4? So I knew right away that it wasn't F or H because that last number is the y-intercept. So it just kind of helps me, but you can always check all of them. So I'm going to go check G. So I go to y equals, I put in negative x squared minus 3x plus 4. I go to my table, and my first dot I'm looking at is for 0, 4, and it is there. Then I said, okay, well, here's a dot at 1, 0. Was it there? Yes. And then negative 2 has a dot at positive 6, and that was there, and so that was my answer. Number 33, what was the clue word? And domain is the? So I highlighted my x-axis, and I say, what is the lowest point on the x-axis? Negative 1. What's the highest point on the x-axis? And which two answer choices could I have marked off because they were not domain? Okay, but I'm asking, what could I have marked off because they're not the domain? B, see how it says Y? And D says Y. So you have to pay attention. If it says domain, then it better have X in it. If it says range, it better have? Yes. So the answer was A. Number 34, what was the clue word? Range. Okay, so what should I have highlighted? And is there any answer I could mark off because it is not about the range? F and H. So now I'm going to look at the lowest point on the y-axis, and it's hitting right here between 200,000 and 300,000, which is probably what? 250,000. Was there a maximum, or did it keep going forever? So there's no way it's J. It's just greater than or equal to 250,000. Guys, if it has an arrow going on one side, then there will not be two numbers. Okay? If it's a line segment like this, then it's going to be two numbers. All right, number 35. This is called an exponential function, And what you need to understand is that when there's this arrow going up, see how it's going to keep going to the left forever and ever and ever? But in an exponential function, there's one of them, it's called an asymptote, and I haven't taught you this yet, but it basically hugs a line, but it never goes below that line. Do y'all see how this is hugging y equals 0 right here? And it's never going to go below it. It's just going to keep getting as close to that x-axis as possible. Okay, so there was two answers you probably thought might be right. So let's talk about them. The range, what is range?
1.
The range is all real numbers less than 0. So is it below 0 down here? So it's definitely not A. The domain is the set of all real numbers greater than -4. Well, I went to -4, and some of you might have thought that that was the answer. Right? So I put a question mark because I knew y'all would think that one was correct, which it's not, and I will explain. The range is the set of all real numbers greater than 0, so the range would be here. Is the range greater than 0? Yes. The domain is all real numbers less than -4. Well, that's saying it would be going this way, and that's not right. So between B and C, what you need to understand is that the domain is going to keep going. See how it's like slightly going to this left side over here? It's going to keep going. This is called an asymptote, which means it's going to hug that line and never cross it. So that's the one that you would go with, which is C. Number 36, what was your clue word? Not what? Not a function. And on functions, what do we only look at? You only look at x's. What's the rule? X cannot repeat to be a function. All right, so let's look at F, boys. 1/10, 1/8, 1/5, 1/4, 1/2. Was F a function? Yes. So I'm looking for the one that's not. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's a function. -0.2, 0.6, -1.3, 1, and -0.2. What did y'all see? These two repeated, therefore it is not a function. Number 37, what was the clue word? So what do we only look at? And I'm looking for the one that is a function. What was wrong with A? Okay, so A is out. What was wrong with B? Anything? Was B a function? Yes, because 6 and -6 are two different numbers, and 8 and -8 are two different numbers. Number 38, which does not show a function. Again, what do we only look at? All right, so let's look at F. Is F a function? Because each input has only one line, so that is a function. Let's look at G. -1, 0, 2, 7. Yes or no function? All right, so that's not my answer. Let's look at H. 2, 5, 7, 8. That's a function. What was wrong with J? If I drew a vertical line, it's going to touch twice right there. So no, not a function. On number 39 and 40, there was two ways you could do it. I need everybody sitting up paying attention. On number 39 and 40, there was two ways. Do y'all remember how I told you that direct variation is when you see the words varies directly, what does it mean? Proportional. So you could have divided y divided by x and made an equation. Yes? But I personally, since y'all been learning it since 6th grade, I think when you have a proportional problem, you should make a box. I just think it's easier. Okay, well, I was comparing y and x. Does it matter if you put y or x on top? Why do you think I put y on top? Because on slope formula and all of that, y always goes on top, so it's just a habit. Okay, so they said y is 21 when x is Then it says, what is the value of x? That's my question. When y is 105. How do you solve this problem? Cross multiply, then, so I have 21 times, we'll say x, equals 105 times 3, which is 315. Divide by 21, and you get 15. Now again, you could have divided 21 by 3 and your equation would have been y equals 7x, but then you would have had to plug in 105 for y and gone from there. Make sense? I just think it's easier to make a box. All right, number 40. What was the clue words that told you to make a box? Directly proportional. So make a box. What am I comparing? Volts and amps. How many volts? How many amps? All right. How many volts for 1.5 amps? Yeah, you can call that x. So cross multiply. 12 times x is 12x. 480 times 1.5 is, what was it? 720. Divide by 12, and you get 60 what? Volts. Now, the rest of the questions, we couldn't find questions that look like the benchmark questions, so we did our best just to find what we could. In my opinion, this is harder than it will be on the benchmark tomorrow. Okay? But we did our best just to find what we could that would look anything like it. This one says, which of the following statements is correct regarding this picture? All right, so let's check one. The function has an asymptote at y equals 0, so that it does not have an x-intercept. Do y'all remember what I just told y'all about asymptotes? It's where it hugs a line but will never touch it. So, does it have an asymptote right here at y equals 0? Remember, y equals 0 will be a straight line crossing through the y-axis. Guys, listen. Y equals 0 is a straight line crossing through where 0 on the y-axis, right here. Is that where the asymptote is, where it's never going to touch that line? Yes. Does this line have an x-intercept? No, because it's never going to touch the x-axis. So that statement was true. I do not think that's on the test tomorrow. Okay? I honestly think only part 3 is. Like that third statement about the y-intercept. But I'm going to show you this anyways. All right, the part 2 says the function would be used to model exponential decay. Well, do y'all know what decay means? Decrease. So exponential decay would start high and decrease like that. That's decay. This right here starts low and goes high. That's growth. Okay, so no, that one was not true. And 3 says the y-intercept is at 0, 1. Y'all should be able to answer something about a y-intercept. Does it have a y-intercept at 0, 1? Yes. So the answer was 1 and 3. Again, I don't think 1 and 2 will be on the test tomorrow. But it will ask you about the y-intercept. Okay? The next one says, which statement regarding this line is true? Now, 2 of these answers looked true. Do y'all agree on that? But one of them explains it wrong. So we need to really pay attention. All right, let's look at F. The slope is 1 1/4. Well, how could I check that? Rise over run. How else could I check this? What did I teach on your calculator? Stat. Could stat find the slope? All right, so I could have done rise over run, which if you would have done this, if you would have said the rise was 2, you would have missed it. Why is the rise not 2? It's not even counting by 5s. It's counted by 2.5, which is why I truly recommend using stat. So if I wanted to use stat, I need two coordinates. This is 0, 5, and this is 4, 10. It's a 10 right there. So I go to stat, edit. I need 0 and 4, and 5 and 10. Stat calc. Which option am I going to choose? Linear, because it's linear. And it says the slope is 1.25. So was this true right here? Yes. Now, don't just pick the answer. You have to read the explanation. It says the slope is 1.25 because the constant rate per mile is 1.25. What did I tell you all about rate and slope? They are the? So yes, that was the answer. But the other one that looked correct was what? No. Why was age totally wrong? Because 12 miles is at $20. Does everybody agree that? But it says based on this, 24 miles is going to be at $40, but that's not correct. Why? It's not proportional. It did not pass through 0, so it will not be this proportional situation where you can just multiply by 2. Okay, but which other one looked correct? J. Why does J look correct? It says the y-intercept is 5. Was that part correct? Yes. But look at the explanation. The y-intercept is not the slope. Do y'all hear me? The y-intercept is the starting point, the one-time fee. And it says the y-intercept is 5 so that the constant rate per mile is 5. That's saying the slope is 5. That's not true. Does everybody understand that? You have to read the explanation. All right, moving on. Number 43, what's true about the domain? What is the domain? All right, so I go to the x-axis. What's the highest point? And then it goes to the left, which means it's? All right, so what can I mark out because domain has nothing to do with it? B and D. And it's less than because it's going to the left. The next one, the graph of the function has a y-intercept of 0, 1. They just gave you a point. And a point at 1, 4. Which answer choice could be this? Where are you going to go? If you went to stat, you could not do linear. You would have to do exponential, and I haven't taught you guys that. So what would I go to check these answers? Y equals. The answer is C, and I'm going to show you why. I go to y equals. I type in 4 to the x power. Do y'all see that? I go to my table, and I say, is there a point at 0, 1? Yes. Is there a point at 1, 4? Yes. So the stat button is truly good for linear because I have not taught y'all exponential and quadratic for the stat button yet. All right, last button, last one. Which slope-intercept form is the equation that would pass through those points? Now, is this one linear? Look at the answer choices. Do they look linear? So could you use stat? Yes. So I go to stat, edit. How many points do I have to put in? So I got negative 10 for the first x, negative 3 for the second. What did I just hit? All right. Negative 4 for the first y, negative 1.2 for the next y. Stat calc, option 4. And the answer is y equals 0.4x plus 0. Which one is the same thing? F, because 2/5 is 0.4. Now I need y'all to listen carefully. Your benchmark is tomorrow. If you missed any part of this review, you have to go to the Google Classroom and watch my video of me going over them. And make sure you're ready for this benchmark. It is a major test grade. Did y'all hear that? Okay?